We're going to be talking today about veteran peer support and social media communities. So peer communities have been sources of support for veterans, just kind of say probably time immemorial, for as long as we can remember. And they've started springing up in the digital space as other social communities have sprung up. So there are advantages and there are disadvantages to delivering peer support in the virtual space.
Okay.
And what we're looking at is just how do we do it better? How do we?
So,
There's not a lot of research on social media peer support, especially when in regard to veteran populations. But we've got some experts here that can share their efforts to build healthy peer support communities and sustainable peer support communities in the digital space. They'll be sharing their best practices and lessons learned. Just from left to right, we've got Matt Bergendahl, Air Force veteran, from Stack Up, and he's their suicide prevention manager.
Yep.
We've got Tom Cruise, Master Sergeant, United States Army. Mark Flower, he's a former United States Army and is active in multiple veteran initiatives in Wisconsin. I'm also from the United States Army. So what we'll be doing is we're giving each of the panelists about 10 minutes to share information about the work they've been doing and lessons learned, and then we'll open it up for discussion to finish out our time. So I'm going to start with Matt. Go ahead.
Thank you. So a little bit about Stack Up before we dive into the more of the mental health components. Stack Up is a nonprofit organization that's aimed towards providing support to the veteran community. Its main focus is trying to find ways to become more socially connected through the virtual means and physical means as well. We have several programs within Stack Up that, for example, the Aerosol program, where we bring in deserving veterans who are, disabled. They have, things that are going on. We bring them out to something called PAX, which is for those in the gaming community. It's a huge event. It's like going to the Lollapalooza of the gaming events to be at. And so we would bring in those veterans, all expenses paid. We would pay for their airfare, pay for their meals, and we would just show them a good time for the 3 or 4 days that they're going to be there. And we would just kind of help them become socially connected with one another, because some of these veterans, they don't really get to see other people. They're kind of by themselves. And so it really became, really drove home the point as far as the work that we're doing. And then we would take a look at the STOP program. The STOP program is a Stack Up Overwatch program. What it is basically is peer-to-peer support. While we do provide services to civilians, we never turn anyone away. Our focus in terms of strategies and training is geared towards veterans and active duty. The interesting thing about this is that from what I've been told is that this is kind of a trailblazing program that we are initiated. We use a online program called Discord, which is accessible through your mobile phone, your tablets, of course, your PC, laptop. And this program allows you to be connected through like video chats, audio chats, or just plain simple text chats. And so what we were able to do was provide a service to veterans and civilians, of course, where if they are having issues going on, and it's not always suicidal issues, but any issues that are going on, they have a place to come to where my trained staff are available 24/7 and are able to provide a place for them to feel safe, a safe environment. It's also secure. You go some of these places where they come to do like a voice chat, it's locked down so that they can't even be seen by anyone else, to provide them a little bit of confidentiality. And all of my members are trained in a very rigorous program to make sure that they're going to provide ethical and quality care. And including once they go through the entire training process, they have to go through HIPAA training and get their certifications. We want to make sure that any veteran that comes in will have a safe place to go, knowing that we're going to take care of them to the best of our capabilities and point them in the right directions in terms of resources, either through the VA or locally through, for example, state level or maybe a city level. And it really kind of, it's a new program. It's only been going on for a year now. But we've been very fortunate to have gotten the ear of several different entities and other stakeholders, one of them is being the CDC. We've been very blessed to have the CDC acknowledge the work that we're trying to get done as well as expand. And in a sort of way, it kind of validates what we're trying to do. We're undergoing a program evaluation, which is something that's very important for us because we want to make sure that we don't always get feedback from the veteran. Sometimes they'll say thank you, but we don't really get that feedback, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, where they said, hey, what you did for us or what you did for me has really helped out. I've been able to develop this plan for myself to get on a better path in terms of what I need to do to get out of this sticky situation. So we don't really always get that kind of feedback. So this type of program evaluation that the CDC is assisting us on is absolutely wonderful. And again, it's going to help us further our reach in terms of the community. So it's been a really interesting run in terms of what we do. Again, the staff that we have is all volunteer. I'm the only paid staff member that works in STOP program. And when it comes to the all volunteer force, it's an interesting situation because obviously we can't direct someone saying, hey, I need you to work these certain schedules, but everybody is so passionate about helping out veterans. And we have on our staff, we have veterans and we have civilians. And they're so passionate about helping each other out that it continues to, we'll see a staff member work with this member for 2 or 3 hours just to make sure that they're getting into the position that they need to be and making sure that they get all the resources that they needed. And it's always, and again, it's a free service. And so we'll get repeated, people coming in, trying to get help, trying to get pointed in the right direction, because let's face it, when you're in crisis mode, there could be times when you're only taking care of the immediate need, and sometimes you have to come back for a little bit more assistance. I've trained the staff to take a look at the biopsychosocial approach when it comes to assisting the veterans or the civilians that are coming in crisis. Of course, we always assess for SI, HI, suicide, homicidal ideations. We want to make sure that we cover as much ground as we can, and that includes the intake that we do. The intake process that we have is all virtual. It's secured in a secure server, and we also try to make sure that we impress to the person that comes in that, hey, we would appreciate if you can give us this information, and we promise that we'll safeguard your information almost as well as you can if you went down to an agency setting to get that assistance. So it's been, like I said, it's been a very interesting ride for this last year. And to give you a little bit of background about myself, I was introduced as being a veteran, of course, but I'm also a licensed clinician. So I made darn sure that we are practicing at a rigorous standard that we can, even with this program that's never been done before. And we're actually going to be working with the AAS to create an accreditation program specifically for what we do. And so that is kind of a slow burner, but we are excited to do it because we see others who are trying to in a way mimic what we're doing, but we want to make sure that whatever or whoever decides to pick up this program and do it within their organization is going to be it's going to be ethical, and it's going to be quality services that are going to be provided. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what STOP does. Stack Up, again, as a whole, it's a charity that's trying to bring veterans and civilians together using gaming kind of like as the catalyst of bringing people together, socially connected through these games, through Discord, through other platforms of social media. So again, Stack Up, Stack Up in itself is only a few years old and ran by a lot of veterans, a lot of civilians, and it's been a really interesting ride working with them as a clinician, and that's about all. That's what I got.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Tom, you're up.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Master Sergeant Cruz. I've been in 24 years. I'm actually stationed in Belgium, so I greatly appreciate Carl and Alea bringing me over from Belgium all the way here to give this brief. I'm actually I attempted suicide in 2010. I attempted to take my wife and myself out, and she's the reason why I'm here. And she's right now in the beaches of Italy, so don't feel too bad for her. But she was able to get defuse the situation and get us out. I got sent to Walter Reed. I was able to get through Walter Reed and then be able to still work through Walter Reed and be able to stay in the military. My job also requires me to have a TSSCI clearance because of what I do, so I had to battle that portion of the Army. And they saw with the hard work that I was doing within Walter Reed to, one, let me stay in the military, and then two, to let me keep my clearance, which, I just got through my 5-year adjudication, so I'm still good for another 5 years. And so I go around now, since the Army was blessed enough to let me stay in and do continue to serve as a soldier, I felt that above that, I should help them out by, going and sharing my story and showing that the stigmas that are out there about the military, about staying in, about the clearances, about going to get help, they can be debunked if the soldier, the veteran, really wants to. People think I have it easy. I work hard every day to manage myself out of that situation and still continue to stay, a good leader, in my mind and provide the leadership that my soldiers need. So that was one thing, as my wife and I now go around and give our story. I give it from the military aspect about how what I went through, then the recovery, and then being able to keep our clearance. Then my wife will talk upon spouse, how she talked out of that situation, how she deals with me every day. Poor woman, but she can deal with me every day. And then we have our son. Our son is 6 years old. He was born 2 years to the day of the incident. So we bring him on stage because that day for me now doesn't have to be a bad day. I see him, and he that's not a black day for me anymore. It's now like a revival. So we were doing that. We traveled around, but then we thought that wasn't enough. So we took to social media, and basically my wife and I will troll Facebook and Twitter at night and in search of veterans that are in need of support, because like it or not, social media is where we post everything. Where we're eating, when we want to go into the bathroom, where we're going, everything is being posted on there, right? I'm not a big fan of it, but that's where everybody's going. And so that's where we need to go. And so we've reached out to them and gone to where they are. And when they post stuff and, words mean and pictures are a big meaning, we will then engage those soldiers, veterans, or anybody, and talk them out of the situation that they are in. We will then provide resources. We've been doing this for 9 years, so my resources have been built up. I will now then provide them a resource in their area, no matter where it is in the United States. I have now upped my game because now I live in Europe. So we have, the bigger picture is now we have soldiers that, we have to think about that are around the world. We have soldiers all over Asia, Middle East, Europe, everywhere. And how do we provide them help? Social media, again, is a good way of providing those with organizations that are on there. We also provide, we sit behind a few pages, some satirical ones that have a big reach. We have sat behind some military ones where we then will provide training to admins. Because the other part is I've figured out and found out that everybody wants to help, but are they capable of helping? And in the veteran community, that's huge. We all want to help. The problem is we are not all capable of helping. One, for many, many reasons. Example I like to use is I sit behind a Marine-led page because Marines have a very high suicide rate. They set up a page. They were monitoring it. I was back there adminning. One Marine was talking to a Marine that had suicide ideations. Something that Marine said triggered the other Marine. Now we have two. And I had to now deal with two suicidal Marines. So great guy, loved to help his guys, but he was not at the place to be able to provide that assistance. He was not trained to be able to provide that assistance. So what Heather and I do is we go and try to provide that training in the form of offering QPR as a very basic. Just go on QPR, learn that as a basis. Then we go past that level. We try to provide them go to assist. Go to your local crisis center, find out what the local training that they are giving in your area, and take those trainings and work well with your crisis center. And then we've built because military is very structured, I've kind of built an SOP. and for you guys that know, it's a standard operating procedures. It's basically a checklist, right? So because dealing with social media and dealing with veterans on social media is very crucial. If I'm talking to you and you're in Texas and then you don't like what I'm saying, you're just going to stop talking to me, right? And some people have a very good lockdown on their social media. So if you don't stop talking to me and then I try to look at your social media page, I may not be able to find out where you live, who you've been talking to, family members, so I can reach them to get to you, right? So I built an SOP that within the first minute, you've got to get this information about the person. Then within the first 5 minutes, get this information, and slowly down there, so that in the event that the soldier or veteran or anybody in general decides they stop talking to you, that you at least have enough information that you can then do what you need to do. Whether that mean provide that to law enforcement, reach out to a family member that's on their page, a friend or somebody that's last talked to, you will have at least some kind of information that you will then be able to provide to do a welfare check or whatever. Because in my opinion, I'd rather have somebody go to a door and be mad at me than I let somebody go, that I let go and found out later that something happened. And that's my personal how I do it and feel. So that's kind of what we do and how we see social media. And again, building, we kind of started this way back in the beginning of where the groups were starting. And I fully appreciate and like when a lot of these groups start up and try to protect their own, because even mine, I have groups from when I was deployed that we set up almost 15 years ago, right? And we still have a Facebook group, and we still come in there and discuss and talk, but it is heavily monitored and made sure that everyone is good. So it goes back to being able to make sure that everybody within there, is capable of assisting and helping in the right manner. And I think that's the biggest challenge I think we're having is, everybody wanting to help, but are they able to help? And then we got to provide. The other one is obviously what I said before, as in going to them. We got to go to where they're at, and we need to really change the mentality of thinking that they're going to come to us, right? And which is something that I was doing at the beginning, was like, well, they're going to come to me because they know my story, and they're going to find me, and they're going to come talk to me. And that's not how it is. A lot of people do, just because I've built that credibility within the community. But then up that to go to the guys that will not, or the females that will not come to me, I will go find them. And that's why I say trolling of social media, because we're looking around, we're trying to identify pictures, we're looking for the verbiage, we're getting information from other people or other organizations. And some of these organizations that are on there that are military satirical, they have a lot of views and they have a lot of people, and those admins that are back there are basically, like same with him, they're all volunteers. They're either spouses of military, they're military themselves, they're in law enforcement. They're all doing this for free, and they're all doing this out of, some of the ones that have 2 million followers are still all volunteers back there. And so for them, training them is huge because of that many followers. That is a big deal, and training them properly. So, going out and trying to train those admins and training those pages to make sure they're providing the best help is what I ask everybody to look at and do. And if you are part of some of those suicide prevention pages or those stuff, then offer that assistance, offer that help of training or that knowledge that you guys have out there, because that's what we try to provide at this time. So again, thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Flower, and I'm a co-founder of Dry Hooch of America. Our organization has been around for, I like to say, 14 years, even though people sometimes tell me it's too long. But there's a side story to that, because we started twice. So there was the first time we attempted, and then some journeys had to be taken, and then we started again. And then we moved forward. So we as an organization, are a peer support organization. We totally believe in peer support and our veterans in the community. Our motto is a veteran is a veteran, and it doesn't matter what discharge status it is. It's all about helping the folks transition back from wherever they're transitioning from. We do a lot of work with vets in crisis, usually coming out of jail or possibly going into jail or coming out of the hospital, all the way down to starting school or coming out of the military and now trying to reintegrate back into the civilian world. And in that process, we kind of just started working with our community in Milwaukee. We worked with not only some veterans groups, but ironically, we worked with a lot of civilian groups. One of our things is that all community groups see veterans, even if they don't know it or not, because a lot of veterans don't use the VA system, or there's a nice group that can't because of whatever the reasons are. So we started trying to educate and just get our community to ask in their community, are you a veteran? Because I found out in our very beginning, no one ever asked that simple question, which in my mind would always cause issues for the veterans that they're trying to serve, because if they don't know that specific, they could prescribe differently. And I've seen folks in the civilian world hurt vets because they didn't know that they were a vet and didn't understand the complexities of what a veteran goes through sometimes. So in that process, we created a peer mentoring program at Dry Hooch, which then we created a peer mentor training, which we actually used to train our peer mentors. And the really cool thing is that we got our Milwaukee County to actually certify our peer mentor training so that our peer mentors could get paid, or we could use that as a sustainability model for we to sustain ourselves, but then also pay our peer supporters, which was really good. Which then turned into another interesting idea, is about an app that we have built and improving on, is where a peer mentor and the veteran who he's mentoring can be connected through an app that kind of asks 7 different questions. Here I can actually, let me kind of give you an idea. So we ask them, like, have you slept this week? Have you engaged in any risky behavior based on what you define as risky behavior? So we've created this to become a tool for the peer mentor to kind of help the veteran that he's supporting in a more virtual method. So if he may not want to say that he's doing risky stuff, he may say it on the app. If he's not sleeping well, or he may say, oh, I'm sleeping great, but really he may not be. He may be more honest on the app than in the aspect of actually telling me as his mentor, for lack of a better way. So the idea there is the crisis reduction, actually catch a crisis before it actually becomes a crisis. And the cool thing about our little app is that it interacts between me and my mentor, or the person I'm working with. And as he's doing his surveys, I can keep track on what he's doing and how he's answering, if he's missing. And we kind of have a small criteria that if, say, he misses 2 question periods, that could be a start of a crisis. If he's doing better, they'll catch that he's doing better, so now I don't have to worry about him too much. But if he's doing a little bit worse than he was the day before, it's something else that I may have to worry about. But the idea is that this is an app that kind of works in conjunction with a program. So we do have our peer support program, and we kind of utilize this in the aspect of what Dry Hooch does as far as the veterans that we are serving. We also work with family members, because that's one of those things that they're not supported that much. Even when they're on a base, they're not necessarily supported that much. And then when they actually come home, and they're definitely not supported that much. Especially like in Milwaukee, where we have no military base around, which kind of provides that hub where some cities and some where around bases a lot of us retire to or live at. So because of those services, so we do a lot with family members too, and trying to help them transition, because there's actually a transition for them also. And suicide for me is every intervention that we do is one less suicide or death by suicide in the aspect of stuff like that for me, because I'm also a veteran in recovery. I've had my bouts of my depression. I've had my bouts of isolation. I'm very grateful that I never really acted on any of that, even though I thought about it often at times. But it was always possible, because we all know it's just one small decision away. So, yeah, and in that same aspect, we created this training that I probably will actually talk a little bit more about it Saturday, because it's not necessarily technical, or the technical side of what we're trying to talk about today. But, and then we at Dry Hooch also, well, I'm kind of running out of my technical stuff, but actually I don't. So we're actually refining what we're doing with our app. And then we're actually taking crisis to the next level within it. And we're actually trying to let this stuff machine learn so we can actually catch a crisis before it even seems like there's a crisis going on. I mean, it's a really cool process with our partners at Marquette University in Milwaukee, our partners at the Medical College of Wisconsin. We have been working for, we're going on 9 years now on this whole project. We were funded through the medical college. We've got some other funding through other organizations. We're actually going for an NIH grant right now, and hopefully they'll buy this version because we applied twice before. But I think we got it nailed down to where they're going to actually probably fund it. At least that's what my academic partners tell me. But then we can take it to this whole nother level of actually then let the machine learning or get it paid for, because right now we're on a very shoestring budget on that one because we lost our fund, or, well, not lost it, but our grant ended on the last pass. So we're hoping that that happens so we can actually take it, because I don't know, in this aspect of, in a program related setting, I really do believe that it gives that added edge, especially in the peer mentor role, but also even in a clinician role where this stuff could help the clinician help their client when they're not wanting to talk to you. So I guess got the 2-minute warning, and I think I'm pretty much done with that part of it. But thank you all for coming today. Oh, dryhooch.org is our website. I forgot to say that.
All right. Very cool, guys. Thanks. It's really interesting seeing just the really 3 different perspectives working in this digital space differently. One thing that I guess I was curious with is that you guys have reference to training. Every single one of you has talked about training and SOPs and the importance of just kind of not winging it. What could you guys each, or whoever wants to speak about a little bit more about what your training looks like and how you developed it?
Sure, I'll go. So right from the get-go, we knew that if we're going to give this this program any chance of being successful, but also being a sound ethical initiative, there had to be really good training. And I kind of based most of the training off of my experiences when I went through a master's program. And for example, well, let me backtrack a little bit. We actually have a partnership with Psych Armor, and they are gracious enough to allow us to have this free access to 15 different online modules of training, all geared specifically towards veterans, military personnel, crisis work, what PTSD is, and for those who don't have that experience, because the idea is to get anyone who decides to volunteer for the STOP program to all become at the same level in terms of the basic training. So we had to cover the basics right there. And once those 15 modules are completed, the STOP staff will then undergo what we call the oral reviews. Oral reviews are 6 rounds, each round being an hour long, where they are going to be given a scenario. So let's say it's their very first oral review. Well, we're not going to give them the most insane, complicated situation that could happen, or what has happened before. We're going to do something a little bit light. We're going to start off with maybe it's a veteran who is looking for benefit help because they lost their job and they're about to lose their apartment. All right, so that's it's a basic needs there, and so we will present that scenario. So we'll have somebody portraying the role of a veteran, and I'm sitting there with the rubric, and I am going through and making sure that they're starting off by building the rapport. They're asking for the person's name, and then they're starting to do assessments. They're starting to do all these different areas that we want to capture and put in the intake, and so. at the end of the session of the oral review, we do a debrief. We ask the staff, how they felt about it. I give them my 2 cents. The actor puts their 2 cents into it as well. And so they got 6 of those to do. Once that is done, then they do the HIPAA training. Then they do the info security training, because this is all online work. And then once that is completed, they're considered fully trained on the very basics of what we consider this online peer-to-peer work. Yeah.
So what we did is we asked our partners, Medical College of Wisconsin, excuse me, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Marquette, with our academic partners, and then we brought in a bunch of veterans to talk about what peer support is and what it should be in the veterans aspect of their mind. And what we did then is talked about it and talked about it. And then the wonderful thing about our academic partners, they were able to take then our talk and then put it in the kind of perspective. And then we talked about it some more. And we talked about it some more. And we talked about it some more. So the really cool thing about our training, I believe, is that we took it from the academic world and actually put it into just common everyday people language. People language, it's one of my favorite terms. Because everybody thinks different, and then, of course, a lot of our peer supporters are folks with lived experience that, not saying they're not smart, but this, in my mind, for me, simpler was always better. And so we really kind of broke it down into a very simple language. And then through that, we also utilized our community partners to kind of throw in kind of the ethical side of that. We do the HIPAA side of that, setting the boundaries of peer support. Because peer support, of course, is a little bit different than being a clinician. I call it, instead of ethical rules, I call them ethical boundaries, because peer supporters are a little bit more gray than what a clinician needs to be. We can talk about our lives a lot easier than clinicians can talk about their lives. So yeah, we created that. But the cool thing and the most important part of that was our community partners through the academic world that helped us kind of put it into perspective, but yet in a real perspective versus an academic perspective. So.
I just keep it basic. I'm just on the ground. I do this out of pure passion, and everyone that does it on the ground pounding level for social media, what I deal with is just doing it out of passion. So the training basically comes from the experienced one of us that have been through lived experience and have been basic training. So since I've been through everything from ASSIST to ACE to MRT to you name it, I then have found teams that have done the same thing. We've built them on them, make sure they're on the admin teams, and then if their admin teams are out there lacking training, we sit on there and then send them to those basic trainings. We understand that what I do is very different than what these guys do. I do is very, Flintstone style, going straight to the street and engaging them. So it's a peer support in the true manner of when we were in the military together, just looking out for each other. So we're just out there looking for each other and finding out which ones are in distress and then providing support to them. We have now, grew from what we used to be and but to have the training and provide them with like crisis center from in the areas, 741, shooting them out AASs because they have tons of resources, or depending on the state how well they are. Organizations like this that I'm now aware of, I can obviously now push these out to the veterans that I know that are in those areas. So we, for training, is more, we're still doing it day by day, figuring out what the best ones are to do and what fits those veterans that are online that don't want to go to other places.
Great, thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take some questions from the audience.
Sure.
Bring it.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering about how you're reaching out to veterans in need. So I know with the gentleman on the right, I'm so sorry, I can't remember your name. Tom Cruise is easy to remember.
Yeah, of course. Lucky guy.
Thanks. Sorry.
So I'm particularly interested in how you're finding veterans in crisis in online media.
Sure.
And at Dry Huge, I didn't hear anything about how you reach your veterans in your community. But besides the traditional networking, giving people referrals and things like that, I would really love to hear, for example, you were sitting there in front of Facebook one night, and how do you go in there and find something?
Well, I'll start off with, Stack Up has a very large community and it's growing. And so we will often get people who are just in our program already who are needing that assistance. However, we do have word of mouth that has been very helpful. We'll have one veteran who says, hey, go talk to these guys. These folks, they will provide you some support, to get you back on your feet or get you back on the path. But we have something that's also very unique because we are gaming orientated. And when I say gaming, it's not just video games. It's card games, board games, stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, anything that's related, we're interested in. Okay. And one thing that we do is that we provide our services of gaming onto Twitch. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of Twitch, but it's another program where, for example, I'm sure you guys see all this this equipment here. Well, the idea is that we are going to present whatever we're doing, like a video game, or in this case, a panel, to the entire audience of gaming community. Millions and millions of gamers watch Twitch. And when you take in consideration the demographics of those who are watching Twitch, that hits our veteran population as well, a big chunk of it. And so what we do is we have people who are volunteers for Stack Up who stream. It's called streaming. And they all know about Stop. And so if somebody were to come into this stream, let's say a Stop member or a Stack Up member is streaming a video game, and because you can chat directly with the streamer, and they have some red flags like, I'm not doing so good. I just lost my job, or my significant other just left me. Well, that Stack Up member, because they know about what Stop is, they will say, go to Stop, and they'll give them the link, and they give them the Discord link, and then boom, I get a direct message from usually that streamer saying, hey, this person is in crisis mode. I sent them your information. Keep on the lookout. We're like, thank you. And then we handle it. So that happens quite often. So that's definitely one way we get it out there.
So we get a lot of referrals. One of our thing is collaboration. We will collaborate with any organization that could have contact with veterans. Pretty much on the mental health and even the health side, because usually that's where we find, and word of mouth is another way. So in our community, we are pretty hooked up in the aspect of the people thing. We also kind of do our online stuff, and usually that in that aspect we get requests. Or we get asked, I got this vet that's in trouble, and can you help me? Or my son is having issues, can you come and help me figure this out? Or and on the family side, there may be the wife saying my guy is out of control, or I need help because my husband or my wife, being today that it's 20% female nowadays, so could be the husband calling, I really can't stand it anymore, I need some help, how can you help me, how can you refer? So through that we built up a nice referral base. So we always try to get them to the VA first, because 90% of us earn that right, even though a lot of us sometimes don't use that. And then for those folks that aren't eligible for whatever those reasons, we have built community partners within that we can take and refer those folks. And then we try to also get them involved with our peer support stuff, so that not only that they're involved with us on the peer support wise, but then the peer supporter can actually create that opportunity, that warm fuzzy handoff to the other organ. Instead of what I find sometimes when you I don't want to say tell people to go somewhere, because that could be how it's interpreted, is we try to get them hooked up with our peer supporters, where then they can actually take them there. And I find that if, especially veterans in crisis, and let's say that, if you don't kind of help them get there, they ain't gonna go, at least a good portion of them, because the next day they may feel better, which then they'll start thinking, oh, I don't really need this, I was just having a bad day. And so we try to do that. So we try to do that person approach, even though our we use technology to help us in that same aspect. Because to me, technology is only as good as the people that are there, and a lot of it is, in my mind, is there's got to be that person connectivity to that technology versus. Not saying, but you do a good job, and you, but what I'm saying though is, I'm sure if someone in Belgium, you would actually be that person to go do that if it was like really close. Technology is, in some ways, is a good way to isolate oneself in that same aspect of reaching out for help. So that, I'm talking to someone here in Arizona, and I'm in Milwaukee. Sometimes it's hard to go, well, I know who you can go to, but I'm kind of focused more on Milwaukee, and where Arizona is, well, first time I've been to Denver in a while, so it's like, I don't know all the nuances of how Arizona does stuff, so. I don't know if that makes any sense, but.
So for us, it's different. So as he's saying, these guys are based out of certain areas where, for me, I can go anywhere in the world or country. So I've built connections and have made sure the admin teams of these pages have built it. When my 2 million followers on one page, I can anonymously get somebody to come to me and say, Tom, I'm having an issue. And I say, guess what? I bet you're not the only one that's in this farmland of so-and-so area, Kansas, and no matter if I'm in Tampa or Belgium, I can say, let me borrow your story. I'll copy paste your story. I'm going to put it in this group. Watch. I'll monitor it. You don't have to do anything, right? All he does is watch this thousands and thousands of people that go, yeah, I have a divorce. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, this. Hey, call me. And then I be the intermediary where I then go, hey, who do you want to talk to? And then you can make the choice. You can go talk to that person, or I'll talk to them. And then I build that bridge. And we've been doing that for a while. And it's progressed over the 9 years that we've been doing this online, because if you put in veteran groups, if you put in suicide groups in Facebook, you'll get 1 million of them. And you can go sit in any of those pages and you'll cry your eyes out because of the amount of people that go in there and say, I want to die right now. And the amount of people that will or will not help. So we in the veteran community is a lot stronger. I sit on both civilian and military groups. And the military side, unfortunately, is a lot stronger because of our peer-to-peer helpness, our motivation, what we've been through and all that, then it doesn't matter where you are in this world, we will come to get you no matter what. I don't have to know you or nothing. So for us, building that, and that's why I like using AAS and some of these other ones where AAS has a very great database that even if I'm talking to somebody, I can go on there and go, where are you at? And I can go, okay, I know there's a crisis center in their resource or somewhere in there, or I'm made enough Twitter friends, I can put it on Twitter, or again, hey, I work at a crisis center, or hey, I go to this VA and this VA is really good, and go see Dr. So-and-so. So get in those groups that have thousands and thousands in there. It's all you're doing is reconnecting them back up. It's easy, really.
And I should probably mention with Stack Up as well, since we're on that topic, we have a international reach. So we like you, we've helped people in New Zealand, we've helped people in Iceland, we've helped people in England, all over the country, because that's the benefit of doing everything online. It doesn't matter where you're from or where you're at, we can still assist you.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of a question on your mentorees, basically how you assure their wellness, how do you create, avoid compassion fatigue. I know you talked about the app you have, or you check in, that sounds like a great idea. Sort of, I guess the other two gentlemen, how do you check in on your staff?
So we actually have a psychologist or psychiatrist. I can't remember what she calls himself. But our peer supporters actually go on a relatively regular basis to talk about themselves. Because really it is, especially with folks with lived experience, we always want to be, well, I always want to be extra careful about my own self. But the folks that do our peer support, we need them to be on their game, for lack of a better way of saying it. And if they're running through issues or there's opportunities where they could fall back on their own, all of a sudden now they become part of, they're not able to do what they're supposed to do in a lot of ways, but in what they want to do. And then we don't want them to go to the hospital. That's the last thing anybody wants, is when our peer supporters are overworking themselves to the point where they end up in crisis, and then next thing you know, well, lack of peer supporter, but then also concerned over a really good person that's doing, and then all of a sudden he's in crisis. So that's very important. We do a lot of, we ask to do a lot of self-assessments about our folks, so they actually tell us how they think they're doing. That's another side of that, because they need to tell us how they're doing, because if sometimes we don't know how they're doing until they tell us. And then we figure out how we can support them in what they need, because that's really what's important. They can help people best when they're actually doing really well in what they're doing. So it's very important, and I suggest that whoever does that work in the veteran community or even just in the civilian community, that's a very important part of wellness as far as your organization, the people that work in your organization, and the people that your organization are trying to help. So.
Go ahead. All right. Well, with my folks, we have a very pretty tight-knit group right now. I mean, we're not like huge by any means, and we have a specific channel where it's just for the staff. And so we encourage, if a staff member is feeling overwhelmed, if they're feeling like they've got their own personal situations that are pulling them away from the work, to disclose that. I mean, we try our very best to support one another. I'll often get staff members, messaging me, says, "Hey, Matt, I'm not doing so well," and so we'll talk about it. I want to make sure that the staff, I care about every one of them, because again, it's a small group, so I know what's going on in their lives. They tell me what's going on in their lives, and so when one of them comes up to me, and it's happened a few times, we'll just say, take all the time off you need. You need support. We are here to help you out. You are, we care about you, and so come here and talk to us. It's kind of cool because, we've had situations where stop staff will, talk about it, and then the entire group kind of converges on them and provides, hey, we're here for you. Come talk to me. What can we do? And sometimes it's just that show of positive force. What I like to see and what I encourage with my group, because like you said, compassion fatigue can easily happen when you're depending, if you're seeing some of the situations and some of the scenarios that we see, they are rough. They're not easy by no means. It's not a simple, here's the link, go fill out this form, you'll get everything you need. No, we've got folks who are really struggling, and sometimes they're with them 2 or 3 hours, and I'll check in on them because I'm always monitoring them. And I'll say, hey, do you need to take a break? Do you need to jump out and have one of our other folks jump in there and help you out? And we always try to make the assurance that if a stop staff member is going into the crisis situation, that there's other stop members to support them. So they're not going in there by themselves. There's people there to help them. So we try very hard to make sure that happens, to help with that fatigue, because that's just the way we work it.
So it's the same for us on Facebook. We basically, the admin teams are all, prior military, so self-care has already been built in. Most are law enforcement or in the field of medicine. So they know when they need to take the break, and we've kind of built it that way. So when they do go into a case or whatever, then they post that into we have a separate side group chat that we all now know who's working what. That comes through our emails or through the mail system, and someone will go work on it. Then we check in on them and they ask for help. And then if they do feel that they are getting too, they've worked too many, because some of our guys are doing stuff 24/7. Literally, we're, especially with a page of 2 million, we're getting people in 24/7. So they step back and they've hey, I need a break. And because they've been trained in the QPR, the assist or something, they've all learned how to take the self-care motives, and so they'll step back, and then we'll fill those gaps until they're ready to come back. There's no timetable, there's no pressure, and then we check up on them, because really, again, we're all one big family. We all have our cell phone numbers. We all have I have people that live here in Colorado. I have the people that live in New York. I'm in Belgium. So we all stay in contact regardless, even when they have to take that step back and we're like, hey, are you okay? And it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see them actually step back on their own and say, hey, I actually need to I need to take a break. And we're like, cool, all right, cool. And then when we step up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Seems to me like, especially in military and veteran communities, online, Reddit, Facebook, whatnot, humor seems to be one of the strongest things that connects peers and also kind of increases their ability to cope. From your view, what, if any, role do you see humor playing in suicide prevention efforts, in a safe way, in an effective way, or, do you think there's work to be done there, with that?
No, you put a bunch of veterans in a room. You got memes for days.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't see the veteran community having any issue with humor. I think the problem is that the outside looks at our humor as in being dark.
Very dark.
When we talk about, like, I go and play Fortnite and I enjoy killing people on Fortnite, you all think that is dark. But when me and my buddies are getting on there, and I haven't seen them in years, but we're on there and we're playing Fortnite for 20 minutes trying to take over, Ninja, if you guys know him, or take over these guys, but we're never going to do it. But we're bonding, right? And we're sitting there yelling at each other, but we're like talking all the humor, but it's fun, right? But we're bonding. So we have a very dark humor that not a lot of people understand, that some people will actually take to thinking it is bad. Do we need to tailor that? Maybe, but that's also how our venting is, how we get it out, how we cope, and we have to, it goes back to going to them instead of us coming to you. Like, you got to understand how we are, how we operate, how we will joke, how we will, bring our humor out, and then can't condemn us when we do that, because then we won't come to you, right? So, understanding, like, maybe we are a different, that we will joke in different ways, and some things you'll see on our memes are not probably appropriate memes.
No, not at all.
I was wondering, let's get a couple more questions.
Tom's face, your live feed, they want to know if you guys have a Facebook page, and what is the Facebook page? So it's a question
Me?
thrown out for all of you.
You got
I'm sorry, what's that?
Facebook page?
On Tom's, he's had a live feed going on right
Oh,
now.
yes.
Someone just asked a question of you all, if you have a Facebook page, and if you do, what is it?
Stack Up is Stack Up.
Stackup.org.
Yeah.
Spelled out.
Spelled out. Thank you.
So I do Silent Warrior, help promote G4G. There's a couple other ones. If you follow me on Facebook, I will post more of them. But I follow most of all of you guys and all the great works y'all are doing, TAPS and AAS and all that cool stuff.
So I manage Veterans for Diversity, Wisconsin Warrior Summit, Veterans Health Coalition. Too many. The Captain John D. Mason Veteran Peer Mentor Program. The Milwaukee County Treatment Court. It's a Veterans Treatment Court in Milwaukee. And then I follow lots of different Facebook pages or pages and groups within the kind of more the Wisconsin community, because that's kind of where I'm at. So
Go ahead and back.
Quick question. So I'm a VA psychologist at the San Diego VA, and I think your programs are incredible and inspiring. And I am actually sitting here thinking, how do I get my veterans to you for those that have more of the national, international reach? Would I just give them your website and kind of talk a little bit about what you do to see if they're interested in connecting? Is that kind of the simplest way?
Yes.
Okay.
For Stack Up, we have links to all of our services right there on our page. Stackup.org. Yep.
And is there ever a situation, as I can really, I'm wrestling with kind of pros and cons to this, where if a clinician were to kind of refer a veteran to your services, would there ever be kind of an opportunity to collaborate and kind of facilitate or coordinate care with that referring clinician? Let's say, for example, you're seeing something really concerning, but you're obviously not in San Diego, but you know that a clinician is working with that veteran to really be able to, I guess, create an open line of communication, of course, with the veteran's permission, but to reach out to that provider and just say, hey, listen, we had this session last night and this is what I saw. I know you're meeting with them this week, this might be something to bring up. Do you coordinate your care with providers who refer to your services?
We haven't, but we would certainly be open to doing that.
So with Dry Hooch, if we don't have permission, we don't, because a big part of building a relationship with the veterans that we work with is the first time we tell on them for whatever was probably be the last time they talk to us, at least for real. So if we had permission, because we
Yeah.
do teamwork, but we normally need permission from the veteran that we're working with, so then he knows that we will be collaborating and talking with each other.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you all evaluate your programs and come to conclusions about, where you've been successful or had good impact?
I'll go first. Well, that's what we have the CDC for. They have been, like I said in the beginning, they've been instrumental in helping us figure out how do we provide the data that we need to know as how effective these programs are. And I'll let me expand a little bit further. I know we're short on time. And it's not just the STOP program that we're going to evaluate. It's the entire, every single program that we have under Stack Up. We actually created, with the help of a close friend, fellow professional, Doc Michelle Carreras, she and I put together this logic model that can be applied to any scenario when it comes to what we're doing. In fact, it's gained enough attention where it could be used for other types of research. So we don't have that information right now, but we are certainly working on it.
So through our journey at Dry Hooch with SAMHSA, because we were funded by SAMHSA, especially on the peer support stuff, so that they were taking they were doing research. Our Medical College of Wisconsin folks, a lot of that stuff incorporated. They would come in and do research on the work that we've been doing. So we try to incorporate again our academic partners into many different aspects of what we're trying to do. So. And then not only that, so we do the numbers, what's that called? What's the number ones, when you do percentages? But then we also bring in where you actually talk about what we're doing. So I'm at a loss right now because I do know that stuff. Right now, it is not in my head. But so we not only do we get the story, but we also take the numbers and then we kind of incorporate it in all the aspects of what we do.
So for us, we just mainly, once we provide them help, we follow them through the whole journey to the clinicians, find out when these clinicians were good or not so we can use them as resources. And then 95% of these people will then become actually part of a larger part of our group and actually be mentors within our pages or possibly even admins later on. So we will follow up and then we'll be encouraging, sharing their story to the others that will come to the page think they're brand new.
So we are pretty much at time, unless anyone has one short last question. All right, short last question.
How have you ever partnered with the states before? So I'm the statewide suicide prevention coordinator for Indiana. Outside of putting your logos on my state page and stating that Jason thinks this is a good idea versus the states endorsing this, how have you partnered? Or have you ever partnered?
We have not.
We have had, depends on the moment, if that makes any sense.
Sure,
But yeah, so we did a lot of work with our WDVA in Wisconsin, but then also we stopped doing a lot of work with our WDVA in Wisconsin just based on certain wonderful journeys of how things flop and flow. And I don't want to be mean about it, but I think you all kind of have a good idea what I'm talking about.
All right, well, thank you to the panel. You guys have been really helpful. And,
Thank you for coming.
thanks for coming.
Good job.